Greetings and salutations, guys. Eric here with my review of ANORA, a movie that has been getting a lot of raves since it debuted at the Cannes Film Festival a few months ago and continued to play the film festival circuit. And I am here to say they're all wrong. No, I'm not going to say that because I freaking love this movie. It is one of my favorite movies of the year now. This is the newest film from writer-director Sean Baker. It stars Mikey Madison as ANORA/Annie, as she goes most of the time. She's a young New York stripper who meets Ivan, or Vanya as he goes by, played by Mark Edelstein. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Hope I am. And ends up hiring her as an escort, only for that to turn into more and more time and money spent together as she begins accompanying him more and more with his friends on his very lavish adventures, all of which results in an impromptu marriage when they go to Vegas together. And they live happily ever after. No, actually, there's a lot more movie to go at this point, and you know that the other shoe has to drop. You're just kind of waiting to see when and how that's going to happen, and I think Baker does such a good job of kind of bringing you in through Annie's point of view into a world that she has plenty of reasons to feel wary of, yet at the same time would also feel drawn into, because all Vanya is doing is lavishing her with praise and money and giving her a much better life than she has ever had, and she is grabbing on best she can and hoping that this is real in some way. Mark Edelstein, I think I'm giving it another pronunciation now, maybe one of them will be right. He does a really great job here of playing what is essentially this sort of man-child. Vanya is 21 years old, but clearly has no cares in the world. He just has all this money from his parents that he is spending and doing whatever he wants with his days, living a very non-stop party life that is probably not sustainable. But he's also charismatic and likable in this very goofy way, and he is so adoring of Annie. And I think the performance really sells how she would be thinking, okay, this is actually feeling like a good thing. Like, this might not be her ideal guy, but that, this still seems like a sweet guy that she could see herself spending more time with. But the centerpiece performance here, the one that's being talked about left and right, and well it should be, is of course Mikey Madison as ANORA/Annie, because what an amazing, terrific performance this is. Madison has been great for years in things like the show Better Things, and then her performances in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Scream 5. But this is her first time to really get to take center stage like this, and she completely grabs a hold of it and really makes you know that this is someone to watch in the future. This is someone who's going to continue to give you wonderful performances, and I think is going to have an amazing career for many years to come. Baker, clearly by design, is not making this a movie where Annie is going to have some huge monologue that talks about, this is how I ended up a stripper/escort, and this is the steps of my life, and this is how I think about it, and this is what I feel about where I am now. She is just living day to day, trying to get by, trying to make a living for herself, and we see that she has this job, that it is a very tough job, and how she has to put on a performance every night, and what it's like when that job is over, and now it's the beginning of the day for most people, and she's just trying to get sleep, and now she has to kind of shut down after all night having to perform. Madison is using this great New York accent for the role. You see how inviting and charismatic she is as a person, how she is able to turn on the charm in her job in a way that someone like Vanya would be so attracted to. It's really impressive because she's showing the different layers to this character and the fact that there is a vulnerability there in a way that is not going to have to be all on the surface, all in the speechifying way. It is just part of who she is. She has this tough, funny exterior, but you know from the start that's not all there is to her. And throughout the film, Madison really shows that she has a certain perspective, this character, and we can only speculate about what exactly in her life led her to this job and to the way she sees the world. But Madison allows you to completely invest in her and root for her in the movie, even though there are plenty of times where she's making decisions that you might think are highly questionable, if not outright terrible. The movie is funny and engaging from the get-go, but then about halfway through it kind of makes a pretty notable shift, because Vanya's parents, who are over in Russia, send some representatives to his house to kind of figure out what the hell is going on with their son and this girl Annie. And it leads to this amazing scene as these guys show up at the door to talk to them, and how both of them react to these guys being there, and how Annie in particular reacts to them, and why she has her defenses up, and how she chooses to show that she has her defenses up. And it is an incredible scene. It is very funny, and yet at the same time there's a lot of tension there. You don't quite know what's going to happen, just what is the line of this movie, how much danger are these characters in, and I think that's something really fascinating about it, how it can grab you like that, and it rides this line because I saw it with an audience that was laughing a lot at this scene, but I think that there was this underlying tension of, ooh, is something very bad going to happen here too? And then it really continues from there into this new territory that I loved. The movie really becomes this mixture of almost Sean Baker's sensibilities with a little bit of Shane Black, as far as following these guys who are a bit shady and their interaction, and how it's very darkly comedic and it feels real, but just in a very clever way, the way they are bantering and how Annie is reacting to them and playing off of them. I freaking loved this stuff, and it really is a bit of a different movie at this point, but one that completely continues to grab you as you kind of want to see, how is this going to play out? Where are we going with these characters? All of these actors are great. I loved the banter and interplay between them, the chemistry between them. But I do have to single out Yura Borisov, who plays Igor, who is the one who we kind of get the most well-rounded portrayal of. And we see that this is a guy who's a little more attentive to what's going on. I really need to go back and watch some of Sean Baker's earlier work because I've absolutely loved his last couple movies. I thought Red Rocket was great, but I especially loved The Florida Project, which was one of my favorite movies of the year that came out. And now we have that again with ANORA. This look he has at these characters that are not often at the center of a film. Most of the time they're sex workers, and we're seeing the people around them in their lives and just how sympathetic it is, and how he's really showing them through a much more human eye than a lot of times where these characters are peripheral or just used for comedy or just kind of played at a level where you don't feel like we're supposed to really engage with them. But here they are right at the center of these movies, and they're not always sympathetic. I mean, Red Rocket was about a guy who was pretty much a sleazeball, but ANORA, certainly we are meant to and we do care about Annie, again, because of the way Baker portrays her, and also through Madison's performance. It is really something special I think they've done together. I believe Baker has said that he basically wrote this with her in mind, and it's quite a collaboration. It makes you kind of want to see them work together again going forward. Obviously, this movie calls for a lot of nudity and a lot of sex scenes, and I think the way they do it, it does not feel like gratuitous or, I don't know, like it's, something that didn't, well, I think about the people who complain that movies shouldn't have sex scenes. This one might not be for them because there's plenty of them, but it completely works within the confines of showing you that this is what this relationship is like between these two characters. It is a transactional relationship. Then there's this idea that, hey, there might be something else to it. But then the danger that always lies on the top of it about how real is this, and how much Annie should have her guard up. And that is really sort of enthralling, and you really get pulled into this story between the two of them and this push-pull they've got going on. And then it all culminates in a really wonderful final scene. I mentioned that it has this amazing centerpiece sequence, and then it ends so strong. It is a much quieter final scene than the rest of the movie. It's just two actors playing off each other in a pretty amazing way, and you really kind of feel Annie's entire journey in that scene. Both the one we saw her in the movie, but then even things that were left unsaid about what her life in general has been like. It sort of speaks volumes in a really amazing, excellent way. This is a bigger scale movie than Baker's ever done before, and I think he levels up admirably here. I really like the depiction of Vanya's lifestyle and seeing this insane house he lives in and the private planes and the trips to Vegas, and seeing him and his friends and just sort of the goofy lifestyle they're living, except they have so much cash to back it. And how Annie is brought along on this ride, and how the question is, can this ride possibly keep going? And all the obstacles that are in the way of that happening. Yeah, I really love this one. It's one of those movies that when it ended, I thought, I can't wait to see this again opening weekend. I mean, I saw it at a screening in a very small room with not that many people, and yet you could feel that most of us were completely locked into this movie and having such a good time watching it, while also being, emotionally drawn into the story and to this lead character. And I really hope it finds a good audience as it goes wider. This is clearly not the type of movie that would normally be a big mainstream success, but hey, Terrifier 3 is the #1 movie in America right now. So I hope that there's room for Annie as well. Very different movies. I'm just saying that they're not your typical mainstream fare, but I think that this one offers so much. It's such a satisfying movie. And Mikey Madison just gives such a great star-making performance, one that I think she's going to have this great career we're going to look back on this movie as this huge turning point for her. People already liked her and were already rightfully fans of her, but this one really just sort of shouts out to the rafters, wow, pay attention to her because she is doing something really special here. So those are my thoughts on ANORA, which will be hitting theaters this weekend on October 18th. I really hope people check it out because it is well worth your time. Thanks, guys. If you can like and subscribe, that would be great. Not as great as ANORA, but it would still be great. And I'll be back next time. Take care.